low stress environment. Um, so you're how old? How old are you?
55.
55. Cool. So in what ways do you think that the era that you grew up in, so like the 80s, right?
70s, 80s.
70s, 80s. Yeah, how did that influence the way you view American politics?
Oh, the way I view politics. So in the 70s, nothing was political. We were throes of the Cold War. So
Sure.
Reagan was president, and there was definitely an aura of potential nuclear disaster or attack, nuclear war between the Soviet Union and the rest of the world. So how did that affect me? A lot of people were on edge, maybe older people. Us kids, teenagers, didn't really care. I do remember my father bringing it up that, World War III is imminent. You should be prepared spiritually for the end. I do remember that conversation. Didn't really take it to,
of course,
any, the next. I didn't live in fear at the time, but other people may have. I don't know.
So you would say that people had a pretty strong sense of fear of war, and especially nuclear war, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Berlin Wall was still up, so it was very evident that there was a clear physical divide between the free world and communist world.
Right. Yeah, so I know we kind of spoke about, some of the things with 9/11. Obviously, that was probably the largest turning point in modern American history. I think we could probably both agree on that.
After, I guess if you don't include Vietnam War, yeah.
Sure. But
definition of modern.
Right, since Vietnam. So how do you view the overall impact that 9/11 had on America? I mean, you probably remember it pretty well, a lot better than I do. So
yeah. So at the beginning, the attacks in New York City, there was a lot of unity in the country to get our pound of flesh from the perceived enemy. We were told that the enemy was Iraq, because Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, which basically we were under the understanding were chemical weapons that he had used on some people of his own people.
Yes.
Killing thousands of people. So we had the evidence that he had these. At least we were told he did. So there was unity. The rush into Baghdad was quick and decisive. So there was a lot of pride, that they just rolled over, and the war was pretty much won in a matter of weeks.
Right.
One of the fallout, though, was President Bush initiated what was called the Patriot Act, which basically allowed the government to listen in on private citizens' phone calls in the effort to root out any sleeper cells or spies in the country. And at that time, my opinion was, you know what? So they're invading our privacy, but it's for the grander good. So if you have nothing to worry about, you shouldn't be worried about your privacy being taken advantage of, or you're losing your privacy basically. And in hindsight, many years later, decades later, I'm not sure that the Patriot Act has been closed or absolved or dissolved.
Right, it's still
should say.
active.
Still active, I think. And then, since then, it's 30 years later, my opinion has definitely changed on that, because I think it was Ben Franklin that said, people that give up their privacy for safety end up with neither. I think it was him that said
Right.
that. And that's how I feel now. Government has no business in our private lives.
So at the time, you thought that the invasion was probably justified because of some supposed intelligence that we had, that Saddam Hussein had WMDs.
Was involved.
Right.
Yeah, I know that he was involved.
That he was involved. Did anyone question the fact that there were actually no Iraqis involved in 9/11? How did that come about?
No. We didn't have social media. The internet was very young. Organizing communication among common people was difficult. All we had was basically the news, CNN. I don't even think Fox News was developed yet. So basically normal channels, NBC, ABC, CBS, and if you're lucky, you had CNN.
Yeah. It seems like...
Did people question it? No, I don't think they did.
Yeah.
We trusted the government.
What time period or what event do you think led you to switch or change your mind or start to trust the government less? Was it a process or was it a singular event? Or when do you remember starting to think, like, maybe this is a terrible idea?
I don't think that any time during the Gulf War that those thoughts crossed my mind.
I remember, I actually, one of my earliest memories was we were sitting in a sauna, the two of us. I think we were at like a hotel or something. And I remember you telling me, I was probably like 6 years old. And you were like, this is what the soldiers feel like in Iraq. Yeah. I remember you saying that to me. And I was like, I think I asked, I was like, why are we in Iraq? And you were like, because of 9/11. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I knew about 9/11.
Yeah.
And that's kind of all it was. It was just A equals B kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, 9/11, that operation, what, Desert Storm?
Yeah. Well, it was originally Enduring Freedom. It was they changed the name of it because they were trying to convince people.
Well, there was we can't conflate the two, because in 1991 we also went to a war with Iraq.
Right.
I think that was the circumstances of that was they had invaded Kuwait.
Right.
President Bush did that.
Right.
I don't remember the circumstances on that one too much.
Do you think that people were already comfortable with the idea of invading or going to war with Iraq because of the first one?
Yeah, I think so. It was already established that Saddam Hussein was a bad dude.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe that was why we were even more trusting for 9/11.
Yeah. And it seems like everything that you've said, like, it's almost like they didn't really calculate the risk of success at the beginning of the invasion of Baghdad. They didn't realize that once they pulled that string, a lot came out on the other end, you know?
I don't know the full story. I don't know what the ulterior motive, the original.
Huh.
I mean, we know, but the conspiracies are far
Yeah, sure.
and wide, so it's hard to say what the actual truth is, and there's probably many different veins of truth that nobody knows all of them.
Right.
So,
What do you, or what ways do you think that, 9/11 and the wars in the Middle East, how has it changed the way you view our government?
one of the big things that changed my view of the government was how we exited Afghanistan after 20 plus years. That was extremely disappointing and extremely frustrating. Leaving all the equipment behind, leaving the base behind, and then the deaths of all the soldiers and Marines. Well, the Marines, and then all, that was just a complete disaster, and it really soured my trust and faith in the government.
Yeah. It seems like you probably had been thinking about it for a few years, and then that was kind of the icing on the cake, right?
Well, I mean, it was like 20 plus years of pursuing what's his name? Help me out here.
Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, Osama bin Laden. Finally getting him after about maybe 10 years into that war, and then another 10 years on top of that of trying to change the government, and to what end?
Multiple governments,
losing. Yeah, and we didn't change anything, and we left things behind, and people died over it for no reason. So it really made me wonder, what the heck? Why are we there? Why were we there? Why should we ever go to war again in any of Asia?
Yeah.
Or anywhere, really, other than our own borders.
Yeah. So it's probably changed the way you view other conflicts like Ukraine and Israel, I'm assuming.
Yes. So, Ukraine, in my opinion, that's Russia's choice to avoid more NATO expansion. That American presidents, going back to Clinton, promised wouldn't expand, and including NATO, they expanded closer and closer to Russia, and Russia finally had enough. They acted out, and then it's really hard not to be cynical with all the money and arms that we sent to that country, and have hardly seen any footage of the war. I think we've seen more footage of the Vietnam War than that war.
Yeah.
So there's really little accountability. I feel like politicians have gotten rich off that. Zelensky has gotten rich off that. Too many people have died senselessly.
Yeah.
And there was little to no effort in diplomacy during the former administration.
Right. Yeah. I think especially after, obviously the exit in Afghanistan, it seemed like the microscope was just totally on that one, or Israel, or either one of them, because they just followed directly after our exit strategy in 2021, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, very interesting stuff. I appreciate you taking the time to answer these questions.
Hey, no problem.
Thank you very much.